sometimes we have to do a lot of cleanup work. Geographically, the most accurate form of geocode available. Now, in some studies that were done, we have the differences aren't that great. So you can see below there, it says that 98% of all the differences were less than 250 feet, not percent, feet. And but in 25 to 50% of the time, it actually did result in the change of the parcel. So it might have put it one or two houses down the street. Now, that's really what this is about. And one of the reasons we're doing this is to educate people. This is a little more accurate than we do today. However, it's a huge thing. So the trade-off is, yes, it's better, but it's not like, oh my, this is amazing, it's so much better. It's a little better than what we have today. And in some occasions, it makes a difference. Now, if we have a parcel, it goes back to the regular geocoding with the street level stuff. So you can see here it says if a parcel match is not found, it falls back to street address interpolation. Okay. This is good to show how street level parcel matching works. So basically, you can see on the left is an aerial photo with all these little houses, and right is basically a digital one that you each parcel outline with the centroid. So basically, we're matching geographically to the green dot in each one of these parcels. So it is accurate. So this is an example of where I said, well, sometimes with the regular street level matches, you off a little bit. So here's an example here. If you look at this, the yellow outline shows the address, the parcel we're actually dealing with. Now, with regular street level accuracy parcels, it's where the blue dot is. Okay, not on the right house, but it's really very, very far away. With parcel level geocoding, it does put it right in the center of the parcel. So in some cases, it does matter. The case that I'd say matters the most with, probably with because being off by a couple hundred feet with flood can be a big difference. Other things have less of an impact because in general people don't need that level of accuracy. However, things like the rule of the coast and you don't want to write within 1,000 feet. Well, 200 feet is 200 feet. Same with if, let's say, you had a 500-foot roll with brush, a type of variance can be significant. So those are the kind of things where these matter. Okay. So again, I said I think the most valuable use of this is where accuracy really matters. So the things that we think people need for high accuracy are flood zones, storm, because flood zones and storm surge pretty much go hand in hand. Fresh air, and the California landslide and liquefaction maps. I don't know how many people are using those. They're very, 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 very detailed. And being off by a couple hundred feet could make a big difference. There's things where I think they help, but not as critical. For example, tax applications. Sometimes being off by a couple parcels could put you outside the city limits. Rating territories, again, only on the edges. I mean, people rating territories either zip codes or cities or counties. So in general, being off by a couple of isn't going to change your answer on rating territory or tax code. But and again, just variations. It depends on how much you care, or whether you say like, being off 1 or 2% of the time really isn't a big deal. Okay. Now, again, a good to prove differences where 100 feet matters. This yellow again outline is the parcel, and the blue is where the level geocoding put it, and the red is where the parcel level geocoding put it. Now, the blue, by default, geocoders usually put things, if it's street level, up the street. So there's usually a setback, let's say 25 or 50 feet. Whereas the parcel geocoding generally puts it in the centroid of the parcel. Now, both look at this and say, okay, well, that's not much of a difference, is it? It's not. But if we overlay the flood zone, and the area in purple is the flood zone, it does matter. So the whole point of this example is to show you that 200 or 250 feet can matter when you're dealing with flood zones. Okay. Now, let me back for a second without the shading, because it's important to note that if you look carefully, that the red dot did fall right on top of the house, and you can see the pole down there too. But that is purely coincidental because the lot is a funny shape. It looks like the house just to the south of it. Actually, if you put the center, I'm guessing that the parcel goes like this. So if you put the dot in the middle of the parcel on this one, this is actually the house. Okay, so that this fell right on the house is lucky. All right. So, the bring this up is in the RiskMeter, manual placement, whether you're using the street level or the parcel level, is still an awesome tool. We actually have a patent on that now. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, let me back to this for a second. My little example that in this case, and maybe that's not even, no, that's a digital globe. That's not the house. Let's say this was a parcel here. The center of the parcel came up here. The manual placement, if you click on this house, it'll give you the answer for exactly where you clicked. So even if the geocode is off a little bit, you can move that. Also, technology where you can overlay things like flood maps right on top of the aerial photos is awesome because you really see if the flood zone touches the buildings themselves. We had a customer who came to us and said they got a flood cert from someone on this apartment complex, and it said it was in a flood zone. It's in an A flood zone. And it came back with a gigantic quote. Apparently, there's something like 20 buildings in this apartment complex, and out of those 28, I think only 8 were in a flood zone. So with our technology being able to see the buildings and the flood zones, they went back and they said, well, wait a minute, not all of these buildings are in a flood zone, and they were able to get a much better quote for their client, which really solved their problem. So besides, yes, the parcels make things a little more accurate, but the bird's eye geocoding, be able to move the point and be able to see it on the map with the flood overlaid, I think are very, very powerful tools as well. Okay, so now there are a couple other caveats as far as parcels go that people should be aware of. Not every parcel in the whole country. So in this map we show you, I think this was, I don't know, 4 months ago now. This was the coverage we had, and every quarter we get updates to the parcel dictionary. But there are areas that don't have parcel maps available, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Coming up with parcel digital maps is actually very expensive for a town. So many towns haven't invested in this technology. Also, some states may not have freedom of information laws. I know our building characteristic info, year built, square footage, number of stories, we have no coverage in Louisiana at all. And I think that's probably either a law or maybe they just haven't gotten funding to do this type of electronic records. There was also some funny things. I think there's been some serious issues in Chicago, which I think is Cook County, with getting parcel information. And for the longest time, Orange County, California, was trying to get like 2 parcels, and it worked out to if you wanted their data, you owed them $1 million or something. But over time, it gets better and better and better. But I just want people to understand, even with parcel geocoding, you're not going to get a parcel hit every single time. And it's important to understand. However, that being said, you can see some of the most populous areas that we'd worry the most about, like Florida, like the East Coast, like Northeast, like California, that the coverage is very good. Okay. So again, so why don't we get matches everywhere? Well, counties don't have digital parcel maps in every case. Another thing that you're aware of that's really funny, and when I first got into this, I realized this, but it makes sense now. Even in counties, so typically, if we get parcel maps, we do get every parcel in the county. If they go out mapping them, typically they will map every single parcel. And we had address lists that we ran through to see how good the parcel matches were. and in its cases, we were getting like 60 or 70%, even had every parcel in the county, and I didn't understand why. And that is one of the big reasons that have multiple names. For example, Florida, where that I know, the street is U.S. Route 1, which is the Boston's Road up here in Boston. But U.S. Route 1 is so known down in Florida as the Federal Highway in some places. In places, it's also known as the South Dixie Highway. So an assessor is only going to have that building or that parcel in their database under one name. So you give it the other name, you won't get them. And there's lots of examples that I'm sure in most of the people on this call of a street that's route this, but it's also known as Main Street, which is also known as U.S. this. So streets definitely can have multiple names, and that affects the match rate dramatically. Condo buildings are also troublesome. Typically, a condo building a parcel number that doesn't line up with the assessor data. So unless the vendor does a good job of cleaning things up, a lot of condo buildings won't get an exact parcel match because the parcel number for the parcel is like a 10-digit code, and then the assessor has a record for every single unit, which is like 15 digits, so they don't match. There's a lot of cleanup involved in condos. Also, sometimes they do screwy things where, let's say there were 50 units in a building, to take the parcel and cut into 50 little tiny pieces so they get a match on every single condo unit. Even that, I think, is hokey and not really accurate. Well, that's the end of my presentation, but at this time I will unmute everyone and we'll take questions. Okay, so with that, does anyone have any questions?
So is RiskMeter using the parcel level geocoding today?
Yes,
is that standard?
It's basic option that we can turn for people's account. There's a little upcharge for it, but it's not significant. There's a little upcharge. So, that's pretty much how every vendor does it. We pay a lot more to get the parcels. So we're just trying to kind of recoup our costs and say, well, it's going to cost you cents to get that option if you want it. And that's why we're trying to point out to people, is it an improvement? Yes. Is it a big improvement? I think that kind of depends on the application.
Okay. And my second question is, you talked about being able to manually move the point to where you think the property is within the parcel. Is the facility available in RiskMeter today?
Absolutely. And I think it's so important that everyone on this call knows about that. Right above the map window in RiskMeter, you'll see buttons for zoom in, zoom out, and the one says manual placement. And if you're looking at the map or the aerial map, and you can see in that map either the top of the building or exactly where you want that location. What you have to do is pick manual placement and then click on the map wherever you want the answer, and all the answers in the RiskMeter recalculate. It doesn't move the spot, it recalculates all the answers. So, even before we had the aerials, we had people who, if they said, well, I know there's a new housing development in this corner in the northwest corner, I can't geocode it. If I can get near there, I can just click with the mouse and get the right answer. So if you don't know how to use the manual placement, call our office. That's one of the things we go through in all our trainings. Someone here named Ryan Turgeon, if you just call our office and ask, can you walk me through it, can you explain it, glad to do that. Okay?
And that's standard today,
that's
right?
That's standard. That has nothing to do with parcels. Anyone can do that.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay? Hey, someone else have a question?
Question. What is
sure.
it? I've also heard the term rooftop placement. Is that anything that you offer? Is parcel level the closest yet? Is there any
parcel level the closest? I heard
sales play. It's not even.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a sales ploy too. People use the term rooftop and parcel interchangeably. I think